All right, everybody, welcome into the RTI Reaction Show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler, standing here at the Food City Center after a big regular season finale for Tennessee basketball. Not only was there a game against South Carolina, which we'll get into it in a second, but it was also senior day for Tennessee's senior class, and it was really kind of the retirement ceremony, the going away party, if you'd like, for the Vol Networks, Bob Kessling and Burt Bertelkamp. So it has been a massive day on Rocky Top, but at the end of the day, 75-65, a victory for number 4 Tennessee over South Carolina.
Yeah, a game that, Tennessee jumped out, I think, like a 23-13 lead. It felt like they were kind of going to coast in this one against a team that's in last place in the SEC. And then the Vols offense went cold for a while. The game, South Carolina even took a lead late in the first half. Tennessee ended up getting it tied up at halftime on a Jordan Gainey alley-oop to Cade Phillips. So it was an and one. And then really around first 5 minutes, second half were pretty tight. Then Chazanier got going and really opened things up. I think there was like a 6-minute stretch where he scored 16 points. And from there, not that the game was over by any means, but it never got super competitive again. And Tennessee wraps up the regular season with a home win and locked up the double bye as they head the next week in Nashville.
Yeah, I know just looking around online, there might have been some doubt as halftime was going on, but it did feel like if Tennessee got a couple little sparks in the game, they'd get right back on track. And sure enough, that came via the shooting hand of Chaz Lanier. He finishes the game with 23 points. 9 of 16 shooting from the floor, 3 of 8 shooting from behind the three-point line, 4 total rebounds to go along with it. You mentioned him up at the top, and then 3 other double-digit scores for Tennessee here on the day. Cade Phillips has 15, Jordan Gainey has 10, and Igor Milicic Jr. finishes with 13. So there you go, 4 double-digit scores for Tennessee here in the regular season finale.
Yeah, and I think 2 of those guys that I wowould particularly harp on, Cade Phillips and Igor Milicic, have not played very good as of late. Cade he played 12 total minutes the last 2 games. He was bad in both of them. He'd scored, like, over the last 7 games, I think he'd scored about 15 points. So for him to score 15 tonight was, you don't expect that from him every time out. But just a good game to get a little momentum for him going into the postseason. And Tennessee needed him because Felix Akbara couldn't stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah.
And then Igor Milicic, it wasn't quite that dramatic, but he hadn't been playing great as of late. And would probably still like to see him rebound the ball a little bit better. I want to say he ended with maybe 5. So that's a terrible number, but he hit some shots. He did some things for offensively. He had a big and one early in the second half when the game was really tight. So for both those guys, I think it was important for them to play well today. And look, Tennessee as essentially a 7-man rotation. They might play 9 guys most games, but it's not like Darlington Dubar and Bishop Boswell are going to play a ton. So it's 7 guys that are relying on it a lot. And when your bench is that small, you need all those guys playing to be pretty consistent if you're going to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. And not that everybody was perfect today, but 2 guys that had been struggling as of late played really well. Yeah,
one thing I like from Milicic that you saw early in the game, about 8 seconds into the game, was that he got that three-pointer to fall early on. Obviously, that is something that you want to see from a player who you're looking for to gain their shot a little bit as the game goes on. It's not a bad way to start out the contest. Now, Tennessee, though, for the good things that they did today, Tennessee does go 9 of 21 from the free throw line. Obviously, improvement can be made there. But, hey, it's late in the season. I think the team knows itself. Might have just been a bad day from the charity stripe, but 9 of 21 kind of kept Tennessee from creating that bigger separation throughout the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's 2 guys you bank on making a lot of free throws and missed them. Chaz Lanier, it felt like that was about the only place he missed today.
2 of 6.
Especially in the second half. And this one less to separation, but Sky Ziegler was just cold shooting the ball as a whole today. And
1 of 4.
1 of 4 with missing 2 front ends in there late in the game. Again, and the game never got close, so it wasn't like they needed it to put the game away. But of note, so that's probably, if anything, you're going to talk about Tennessee's offense struggling today. Free throws is probably at the top of that list.
Yeah, not a bad deal. There's a lot of commotion happening behind us. That is because Senior Day happened today. A little bit of a different schedule. Normally it happens before the game. Tennessee opted to wait until after the game this time. And I think, you've seen certainly stories in the last couple of years about how that can sort of shake a team a little bit before a game, especially a regular season finale that you need to get for seeding purposes. Tennessee opts to wait until opts to save theirs until after the game. And I think that really worked out for Tennessee today. A lot of the fans here in the arena stayed, and it was a really emotional day, not just for Rick Barnes and the coaching staff, but Tennessee had 7 seniors who went through Senior Day today, most notably just Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack, 2 4-year seniors, but also a laundry list of players. Igor Milicic Jr., D-Stone Dubar, Jordan Gainey, Chaz Lanier, and Grant Hurst got recognized as well. So that was a big deal here on Rocky Top today, and I think a lot of emotions came through with it.
I think there's kind of a weird dichotomy that Tennessee's almost a perfect example of, and where some instances senior day means pretty little now. And not to minimize Igor Milicic or Jonathan Dubar, and to a lesser extent Chasleneer. But guys that only spent 1 year here.
Sure.
In Chasleneer, I think it's a little different because he is a guy from the state of Tennessee. And again, I don't mean that to really minimize them, but you're going to have a lot of transfers that come in for 1 year. But because of that, because of the transfer portal era, I think guys like Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshach who stay for 4 years, those senior days become all the more special. And all that is, you saw that today. You saw that from both of them. Jemai talked to the media yesterday. You saw that on senior day. And I think Jordan Gainey was only here for 2 years, but I think you give him a lot of credit for making the most out of those 2 years because I think he's very fondly remembered as well. So it's definitely a different feel in the transfer portal era. Sometimes a little bit less, but I think Ziegler and Meshach were two guys that are incredibly beloved, and certainly I would say John Fulkerson, and then besides that, kind of Grant and Admiral would be the only two guys that I would say their senior days felt on the same level as of Ziegler and Meshach.
Yeah, and there's been some big ones here, obviously in the last couple of years as well. Josiah Jordan James, Santiago Vescovi, guys who did spend.
Those were big ones too, but
certainly, but
they didn't quite have the same feel, at least in my opinion.
I agree, and I think there was one line that Jemai Meshach said in the video that they played before the actual ceremony and presentation happened. It was something about loyalty, and that sparked the that sparked the crowd in the attendance. I don't even know how much they listened to the last 15 or 20 seconds after that, just because once he said that line about loyalty, I think that's something that they grabbed onto. Most people, I should say, they know the story of these two guys. Obviously, the toughness and the leadership that Jemai Meshach brings to the table, the off-the-court storyline that Zakai Ziegler and his family bring to the table. Obviously, two very beloved Tennessee Volunteers. And, man, they at least from my vantage point, they got a pretty special day today for the senior day presentation.
Yeah, they did. And I think two guys that really probably part of the four winningest years in Tennessee basketball history, and big parts of it, too, especially Zakai. So those guys finished their career 60-5 in this arena. I believe 4 straight 25-win seasons. They finished in the top 4 of the SEC 3 of those 4 years. They won an SEC regular season championship in the first SEC tournament since the 70s. 2 runs to the Sweet 16, second Elite 8 in program history, and obviously they get one more crack at all that, and they'd love nothing more to cut down the nets in Newark or Indianapolis to get to the Final Four in San Antonio. So not a ton left for those guys to achieve, but an incredible career off the court, and then certainly what they did on it has been so important and affected a lot of winning for this Tennessee basketball program.
So Tennessee picks up a 10-point win, 75-65 over South Carolina here today in Knoxville. As Tennessee's press conference after the game was going on with Rick Barnes and some of the players up on stage, the Alabama-Auburn game went final. That one took a couple extra minutes because it went into overtime. But it was Alabama who hit a buzzer beater, I believe, right?
Yes, yeah.
So one week after they got hit with a buzzer beater, they beat a rival on a buzzer beater against Auburn in Auburn. What does this mean for what Tennessee's path will look like through Nashville in the SEC tournament next week?
Yeah, so Tennessee will be the 4 seed. I don't know exactly. They'll have a double bye with that. I don't know exactly who they're going to play on Friday. I think some of that's still up in the air. You can check out at RockyTopInsider.com later tonight. We'll have that pass completely updated when the bracket is finalized and all the games are final today. But it will mean Tennessee will play, presumably, if they win on Friday and Auburn wins on Friday, they'll play Auburn in the semifinals and Florida and Alabama. In theory, will be the other semifinal.
Time to go.
But I guess the important note from a seeding standpoint when we talk about the NCAA tournament, my guess would be Alabama now jumps ahead of Tennessee with this win today, which would mean Tennessee would be the second 2 seed, but because of the way it works with the SEC teams, that would send Tennessee to the East region with Duke, who was going to be the number 2 overall seed, instead of Houston in the 4 overall seed, which would be in Indianapolis. So that's, I think, the bigger note long term. Now, I don't think that's just for sure. Tennessee goes and wins 2 games. They beat Auburn next weekend in Nashville. I think that could flip again. But that's my guess, without having seen any bracketology. That's my guess how that'll iron itself out. So that's kind of the NCAA tournament ramifications and what that could mean there on top of the SEC.
Yeah. Again, stay tuned to RockyTopInsider.com and obviously Ryan's Twitter account as we go through just a lot of different seating options that could happen and obviously what Tennessee's path is going to look like both in the SEC tournament next week in Nashville, and then so on and so forth in the NCAA tournament after that. If you see me going back to check my phone, trying to make sure it's still alive, we have been doing a ton of recording here at this game today. Not only the Senior Day presentation, Bob and Bert's presentations, obviously what we got going on now, and post-game press conferences. If you want to go check out any of the big happenings on Rocky Top today, make sure you check out the RockyTopInsider.com YouTube channel, subscribe and like, do whatever you need to do to stay connected with that, because that is one of our best ways to get you our content over to you. Otherwise, man, a big day here on Rocky Top. Tennessee closes out the regular season with a win from Knoxville. Any other kind of final thoughts on any of the happenings from today?
That's all I got.
All right, Tennessee gets a big win, 75-65 over South Carolina in the regular season finale. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. We'll see you back for the next one in Nashville from the SEC tournament.